think at one time or another we've all questioned as to whether all that we see and are experiencing in our world has some sort of a rational plan behind it. We now know, of course, through the work of many historians who have spent their life working on research to show us that both sides of world conflicts have always been financed by the same people. We know, of course, that we cannot depend on our leaders. Our leaders are misleaders. There is a science that they're following. They have their own agenda, and it doesn't include you. Conflicts require money and cooperation. World conflicts require world banks, International Monetary Fund. You want to ask yourself, too, where did Adolf Hitler and the communist government today get their money? Who financed Stalin? Who financed Lenin, Trotsky? Who financed the communist revolution? You might want to ask yourself, what part did American Wall Street play? The international bankers in New York, in Switzerland, in London, what part do they play in financing people like Hitler, like the communist movement? And God knows what else they're financing throughout the world. Our country, like so many before us, and like so many after us, was in fact founded by Freemasons. Freemasonry has played a part in almost every government ever founded in this world. We want to establish first that what we're not talking about is blue masonry or the Masonic lodges in your hometown. We're not talking about the Freemasons that live across the street from you. We're talking about a worldwide fraternal organization that is powerful enough, old enough, and wise enough to operate behind all governments in the world, behind fraternal institutions, monetary systems in the world, and yes, they are in fact connected. If we remember that our Constitution was signed in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania is referred to as the Keystone State. The reason why the Freemasons that founded this country were members of the Scottish Rite, and in that Scottish Rite there is the Royal Arch degree. And of course the Royal Arch was originally because of the sun coming over the horizon in the morning made the Royal Arch. The Royal Arch degree of Freemasons has been continually and ever busy throughout the world with their Freemasonic endeavors. We might ask ourselves about the Red Cross. The International Red Cross is a Masonic organization. They always, in every conflict, are able to go behind enemy lines. Why is the Red Cross, the International Red Cross, able to go behind enemy lines in wartime and conflict? There's a reason. The International Red Cross out of London, connected with the American Red Cross, comes from the Red Cross of St. George, the cross on the British flag, the Red Cross. That also is a Masonic institution. You might also want to ask yourself why it is back in the early 70s, while no one was looking, NATO, the North American Atlantic Treaty Organization, changed its fatigue colors, or the camouflage colors, from the dark greens and dark browns to light tan. Why? Because this government, along with its NATO allies, realized that there would be a war in an area where they would need camouflage, which would be light tan. So quietly, they changed that. They changed the color, and you didn't know anything about it. Keep in mind, too, what your government pays for, it gets. If you are paid to do something for the government, they will extract from you exactly what they have paid for. When we understand that, then we look at universities and schools, government-financed institutions of education, and see the kind of students and the kind of education that's being turned out by these government-financed schools. Logic will tell you that if what is being turned out in those schools was not in accord with what the state and the federal government wanted, then it would change it. They're getting what they have paid for. They do not want your children to be educated. They do not want you to think too much. That is why our country and our world has become so proliferated with entertainments, mass media, television shows, and every kind of entertainment to keep the human mind entertained so that you don't get in the way of important people by doing too much thinking. You had better wake up and understand that there are people who are guiding your life and you don't even know it. But we're all too busy trying to stay alive and live our lives. And after all, what can one person do about it? One person can do nothing. But a nation educated can do much. Before we get into the older European history of Freemasonry, let's look at our own backyard. Is this a scene from Mississippi burning, or is this a picture of 1930s Ku Klux Klan meeting? Who are the men hiding behind the hoods, and why do they venerate the owl? Simple, the owl symbolizes wisdom because it sees things in the dark. No, this is not the Ku Klux Klan or Mississippi burning. This is your constitutional government burning. Let's remove the hoods and see who came to the party. The last 2 weeks of July of every year, a secret meeting is held in our country in Northern California by the world's most powerful people, bankers, politicians, industrialists, entertainment luminaries, all overworld figures. This group, directly connected with the European ruling elites, is commonly known as the Bohemian Society. Our now famous Council of Foreign Relations, the government behind the American government, is represented here, along with members of the Bilderberger Group of Europe. A meeting held once a year to decide a worldwide scale your future, a shining example of true democracy carried on in the dark. Obviously here, your vote doesn't count. More specifically American and even darker and equally as insidious is an organization that our own President George Bush belongs to, namely Skull and Bones, rightly understood to be America's secret establishment. The Bohemian Society, Skull and Bones, CIA, DEA, Mafia, and the IRS are just some of the groups that make up the true power behind the throne of America. Like all other kingships, America's power elite hinges on family blood, just as the power structure of the Mafia. To show that the word bloodline is not just a figure of speech, let's take a look at the actual facts. Carefully outlined here are the actual lineages of American presidents and their bloodline connected to European aristocracies of power. Starting from Edward II and III of England, 28 out of our 42 presidents were connected by blood, including President Bush and Vice President Quayle, who are also in fact related to each other. Most of the 14 not connected by blood were connected by fraternal orders used by the bloodlines, with only a few exceptions, notably in disruption, the Kennedys, seeking to disrupt this dynasty of power in America. Owing to their vast financial backing and personal intellectual charisma and much behind-the-scenes political maneuvering by his father, Joe Kennedy, John Fitzgerald Kennedy was inserted into the presidency, the idea being to disrupt the status quo by establishing a Kennedy Roman Catholic dynasty, and thereby serving notice on the Freemasonic powers of this world of their unwillingness to cooperate and play by the unwritten rules. Justifiably feeling threatened, the established bloodlines of power in America removed the Kennedy threat. Official police records show that the John Kennedy assassination was closely preceded by and followed by as many as 100 assassinations, all of which were closely connected with the Kennedy family's rise to power.